Oh, those lights are brighter up here than I thought. Oh, hi, everyone. Hi, so it's my first time speaking here, but I've had the amazing opportunity to speak all across BC. I was recently crowned Miss British Columbia, which is a very random thing. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know that still existed either. So when I was 16 years old, I was walking home from school one day and I felt like I hit a wall, like physically hit a wall. And all of a sudden I was lying on the floor crying in pain and I had no idea what was going on. And I started hearing everything was loud and quiet all at once, all at the same time. There were voices that were yelling at me and yet no one was there. And as I started to come out of it and as the pain started to subside, this dread washed over me and this sadness washed over me. And I didn't know at that point that that would be a turning point in my life. That was the first time I ever had a seizure. So for myself, I have epilepsy and I have something called temporal lobe epilepsy. 90% of my seizures, you wouldn't know that I'm having one in front of you. It's just a little minute of zoning out. My body keeps going, I can keep having a conversation, yet I won't remember a thing. And then 10% are what I had that first time, and that's what a lot of people associate with epilepsy is the big shaky seizures. And it feels like someone is stabbing your body thousands of times over and over and over again. And walking home at 16, I didn't know what happened. All I know is that it wasn't good. And so when I got home and my parents asked me, "How was your day?" I said, "Fine." Then I started having seizures more and more and more until I was having 4 or 5 seizures a day. I became so anxious about it, I couldn't leave my house. And the wave of sadness that had first come over me on that first seizure changed to depression. And I felt hopeless and I felt lost. I went to school one day when I was 17, the very beginning of my grade 12 year, and I sat down and we were writing essays in school, and I sat down and I remember sitting and I remember hearing a voice, a man telling me, "You're going to fail, you're not good." And then I turned back to my paper, and the next thing I remember is walking it up to my teacher and handing it in. And she looks at me and she says, "Christine, what's wrong?" And I had no idea what she was talking about. I just handed in my essay, right? And it was just gibberish. There was no coherent sentences anywhere in it. I went from being an A student to failing at a school. And after that, eventually dropping out. I was living in and out of different treatment programs. No one really knew what was wrong. I was a teenager. They thought, teenage, moodiness. I got depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, no one could tell me what was going on. But finally, at 18 years old, the doctor sat me down after an MRI and an EEG, and I'd been hooked up to machines for weeks. And he said, "Christine, you have one of the worst cases of epilepsy that we've ever seen. It's never going to go away, and we can't tell you that it's ever going to get any better." He told me it would affect my everyday life. For most of my life, I won't be able to drive. I won't be able to work many different jobs because what happens if you're on a job site and you have a seizure? I learned that I would probably never be able to have kids or have a family, and that every single part of my life was now shaped by this one thing. And I remember my parents taking me back to their house and sitting on my bed and saying, "What now?" And I put on my running shoes and I went for a walk, and I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. I just knew that my feet would take me to where I needed to be. And I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked for 5 or 6 hours. And I ended up on the top of Quarry Rock in Deep Cove, sitting on the edge, just staring down and saying to myself, you know what? If I just push off now, it's over. There's no more pain. It can all stop. I won't be this burden on anyone else anymore. I don't have to worry about it. And for that brief second, all the sadness that was in my heart and in my mind just lifted. And I am so glad that it did, and I'm so thankful that fate said and knew that it wasn't my time. Because from that moment, it was the decision that, yes, this is you, and this is who you are, but the life only hands you these challenges because it knows that you can handle them, and it only takes you to the very bottom of the barrel because you can rise to the top. And it's only because you know what it's like to feel that worthlessness and that helplessness. I can't describe what it's like to want to jump off the cliff. It's until you're in that moment and you're like, I can't do this. But it's only once you've been there that you can stand on the very top and you can help people up from there. And that's basically what I do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.